When tragedies happen, more people are affected than the victims of the events. The survivors, the friends and families of the survivors, and the innocent bystanders are all impacted by the fallout of catastrophes at the same time. And this results in a rippling, cascading effect of pain that only time can numb. But it is only human nature to avoid pain and pursue pleasure. So what happens when someone offers a cure? A painless miracle cure that numbs the psychological pain and enhances the joy. All to the credit of Fulwish and her Research Society of Happy Smiles. But who is Fulwish? How do her abilities work, and how does the path of abundance tether itself to an elation-centered organization? Well, I did some reading and some research, and I found the answers to all three of these questions. But fair warning, because this gets complicated. This is probably going to be one of my most complicated videos that I've made in a long time. Because in this video, I'll be looking into all aspects of our new cult leader antagonist. So without further ado, this is Fulwish Explained. Okay, so first things first, in order to understand the abundance's influence over the happiness surgery, we have to look into the supplicant behind it all, Fulwish, because she is probably one of the biggest of big shots in plain Arcadia. She runs the media with Fulwish TV and a portion of the education system with the Research Society of Happy Smiles. So looking into the history of Fulwish, this all begins with the Bloodstained Games. And in this bloody event, Fulwish, who was a student at the time, lost her parents to the Herald of Death, Marcus Antali of the Intelligentsia Guild. And this trauma hit everyone hard, including Himiko, but trauma tends to affect people in different ways. Some took their own lives, some carried on, and some retreated into seclusion. But Fulwish was different. And brace yourself here, because things are going to get real sciencey really quick, because the way that the trauma affected her gave rise to a condition. According to her medical records, an electroencephalogram showed no signs of physical damage to her brain, but there was an abnormal tissue growth around the site of her synesthesia beacon implant site. More on that later. Because what else was unique about her is that she has the ability to sense the wish power of an individual and create the images it produces in her anterior cingulate cortex, meaning that she can sense a person's desires through the wish power they give off, and she sees vividly what they want in her head. And when she tells a person what she sees, the person then is entranced by hearing their desires vocalized and put into language, and they lose all rationality. And she calls this happiness grammar. So, put as simply as possible, she can passively sense what people want, and by telling them what they want, they lose their minds. And we see her using this in the story because I think Fulwish has gotten better at using her happiness grammar since getting her medical records released. Because here she isn't telling people what they want, she is straight up sensing what their troubles are and gaining their trust that way. So this method of what I guess you could say is sadness grammar doesn't have as potent of an effect as making people lose all rationality, or at least immediately, because these people do lose it eventually. It is a strong ability, and she's had 15 years to master it. An ability eerily similar to Kafka's Spirit Whisper, which can hypnotize people through verbal language. But this is not where Fulwish's similarities to Kafka ends, because along with gaining this happiness grammar ability, Fulwish has lost the ability to describe negative feedback received by the self, and has also lost the ability to actively express the pain perceived by the self. So she can't exactly process negative emotions and pain properly. And the way this is similar to Kafka is because Kafka can't feel fear. Two people with these verbal hypnosis abilities with conditions that render them unable to process negative emotions. Fulwish is just a way worse case. But going back into the science, we can understand that all of these mental issues find their origins in the exact same part of the brain, the frontal lobe, the section of the brain responsible for processing language production and emotional regulation, the very same part of the brain that houses the anterior cingulate cortex, the origin of Fulwish's abilities, and the specific part of the frontal lobe responsible for emotional regulation, error processing, conflict monitoring, among many other things. But this is where things get strange, because since the language processing missing part of the brain is also the frontal lobe, we can guess that the synesthesia beacon implant site is also there. Everything is happening in the same part of the brain. Fulwish's abilities, symptoms, and abnormal tissue growth are all happening in the same place in her brain. So with this pattern now detected, we gotta go even further, because this is where I think we can pinpoint what the power of abundance did to her body. And again, brace yourself, because things are about to go off the rails. This was just the beginning. You see, I did a series looking into each and every single species in Honkai Star Rail in my quest to learn more about this game and the way the lore works. And in episode 1, I looked into Homo celestinae, or Xianzhou natives. And looking into their biology, we learned how their immortality works. You see, the fruit from the ambrosial arbor affected them on a cellular level, because each and every single one of their cells can shift from differentiated cells to stem cells literally whenever as needed, leading them to this scientific law-breaking biological state where they have a massively enhanced healing factor in a body that never ages past peak adulthood. They are elves with a side of Deadpool in there. And the reason why this is important is because we know for a fact now that the abundance works on a cellular level, meaning that the abnormal brain tissue growth that Fulwish has can easily be tied to the abundance. Why? Because the specific type of brain cells found in the frontal lobe and the anterior cingulate cortex, the place where Fulwish's happiness grammar ability comes from, are called spindle cells. Cells that, according to scientists, facilitate rapid social cognition, empathy, and emotional regulation. So, when someone has an overabundance of these cells forming around an implant that allows you to automatically translate all types of verbal and non-verbal communication into a language you understand, because that is what a synesthesia beacon does, I think you can guess what happens next. Fulwish's synesthesia beacon in her frontal lobe is being sent into maximum overdrive by the spindle cells duplicated and enhanced by the abundance, allowing her to see, analyze, and empathize with the non-verbal and verbal cues literally everyone gives off, even the wish power they give off, which is just hopes and dreams. Why this allows her to entrance people? Well, I can't be too sure, but I have a hypothesis. You see, people never truly know what they want. We humans are always in a constant journey to find what makes us happy. And sometimes we get to where we think that destination is, and it turns out it wasn't the right place at all. This is why people do things like meditation and introspection, because knowing yourself is probably more difficult than learning other people. So when someone just verbalizes what your true desires are, when humans are designed to take a lifetime to figure it out, it's probably so euphoric to visualize that your brain can't handle it and you lose rationality. And after getting a taste of that high, it's impossible to return to reality, thus resulting in people resorting to the happiness surgery so that they can replicate that euphoria every single day. But to be honest, there are a multitude of different reasons for why people would get the happiness surgery. That is just one reason. But bringing this all back to Fulwish, when a person knows your desires better than you do, it's very easy for said individual to become venerated and respected. There is nothing more charismatic than a person with superpowered empathy who can see your best life and tell you about it. Not to mention being a rich philanthropist who runs the media. How she got rich? Take a guess. The IPC. Not only did she get a massive payout from them for being a survivor, as Asheville discovered.
But here's the interesting part. This item was nowhere to be found in that year's public financial report. Care to guess whose books this money went through? It was you, the omnipresent IPC. To be precise, it was the IPC's technology department that paid this astronomical compensation.
Every expense is covered by a charitable foundation established with the compensation from 15 years ago, until the Inter-Astral Peace Corporation violently tore us away from that sanctuary. They brought us their so-called inter-astral civilization, imposed their so-called standards of happiness, and told us that life's ultimate joy lies in self-focus, self-indulgence, and self-satisfaction.
That's a rather harsh way to talk about your current financial backers that made you Fulwish. Slick little cover up there though. So yes, Fulwish is an IPC industry plant. What? No gasp? Not surprised? Well, I'm not either. Everything this corporation touches turns to toxic waste. But anyway, one question still remains. How did Fulwish get her abundance power or cellular enhancement? Well, I think she tells us. Because in her speech that she gave to her followers, she says that she was at her lowest of lows. But an old woman from the Mutual Aid Society reached out to help her. And in this moment, she felt the Master of Elation grant her a reason to live. But I think she was wrong. This wasn't Aha's voice. This was Yaoshi, the Aeon with an ambrosial arbor already on the planet that is all too happy to grant the wishes of quite literally anyone asking. The very same Aeon that, and I quote, cannot bear to see death and the pains of illness. If there is any Aeon that will nurture someone into living, it's Yaoshi. Sure, Aha is always listening, but when you look at the evidence of her cellular brain tissue growth and the abundance energy found in those who receive the happiness surgery, it all points to one Aeon, and it's not the elation. It's not Aha. Ryusuke already said that Aha doesn't have the ability to cure things like the Weathering Curse, which is also looking like Yaoshi's doing as well. But of course, Himiko won't tell us anything, and to be honest, she is the single character that I am frustrated with the most in this story, because she is the one person with all of the info about this world, and she refuses to talk about anything. Besides crying about the Herald of Death over and over again. Yes, I know, it's bad, trauma sucks. But when, where, and how did you find the Express? There are two stories in the game of how this happened that conflict with each other, and both of them are told by Himiko. How did she fix the Express? How did she get cured? We don't know, because Himiko has had all of the chances to tell us, and she hasn't. She even let Pearl flaunt a copied forgery of her ancestor Graphia's work right in front of her, and she didn't say a peep about it. Not even a, wow, this is an impressive reproduction. Nothing. She had nothing to say, and she knows what it looks like to the point of where she can put the painting back together again when it's broken apart and control it to attack people. She has an incredibly high amount of knowledge and mastery of all things Imagenesis that she just refuses to share, along with how she got cured of a generational curse. You know what this is like? This is like, instead of her telling us her progress towards narrowing down who Lygus was, she told us what her last name was. Like, cool, great, but that's not what's important right now. Ryusuke did the same thing. Oh, that's not important how you got cured. Yes, it is. It is all important. Everything hinges on what the abundance is doing in plain Arcadia. So if you pay no heed to the plot of the story and refuse to answer my questions, then I can only do it myself. The abundance cured Himiko, enhanced Fulwish, and is behind the happiness surgery crisis. So yes, the abundance has been busy in plain Arcadia, and I think we found the origins of Fulwish's power and pinpointed exactly how it works in relation to the abundance. That Fulwish is convinced is elation, but it isn't. Because this is Fulwish Explained. Sorry about my rant. Did you get all that? I told you that this was going to go off the rails quick. I had to do a fair share of research into all of this, so I hope that you enjoyed the fruits of my labor. I do love that Hoyo gives scientific terms that actually make sense and can be tracked with real life facts. Even the magical abilities like Fulwish's happiness grammar seems to find its root in science. When you buff the brain enough, it can do some crazy stuff, and magic is just science we don't understand yet. And when all of this comes together, you get this crazy off-the-wall lore in this game that I love to share with all of you. By the time of this upload, I've probably streamed my reaction to the 4.2 trailer, so I've definitely got more to tell ya. This is all going crazy, and 4.2 is going to be even crazier. I can already tell. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.